I loved my dad. My dad taught me to smile and to laugh, even if times were tough. The last year of my dad's life, he was in skilled nursing. And that year was tough, but Dad made it easy for me. Because you see, every time I went to visit Dad, he would smile, he would laugh, and he never complained. Usually the first question I asked my dad was, "How was lunch today?" And Dad would look back at me and he had that big smile of his. And he'd say, "Lunch was great. I loved it." Now, did you notice? Dad didn't tell me what he had for lunch. He never did. And I never asked. Because you see, I already knew that Dad couldn't remember what he ate 30 minutes after he ate it. But for some reason, every single time I went to visit my dad, he always remembered this. "You weren't very good at track, were you?" He asked me that every visit, multiple times. And I'd look back at it and I'd say, "That you remember?" And he'd just laugh and he'd smile. And I would laugh too, because when he asked me that, it made me happy. Because it showed me that Dad still knew who I was, because I was his daughter that wasn't very good at track. But I was his daughter who could make him smile and laugh. I'm not a gifted athlete, but I still went out for track for 4 years. But I worked harder and I trained harder than anyone on that team. I even ran extra miles on the weekend. You know why? Because Coach Marianne told me that I was a long-distance runner. He said, "You have endurance. You have guts." I just didn't have the talent. Now, long distance, in the 70s, the longest race they left us girls run was the 880. 2 laps. Yeah, that's all they thought we could handle. Well, it was actually 1 more lap than I could handle. Because after that first lap, that second lap, when I was down that final stretch, I was always out of reach of scoring a point. I was always 4th. 4th doesn't give you a point. Now, my very last track meet, my senior year, I ran for Mannheim Central. We were running against Mannheim Township. This meet was really important because whoever won this meet also was going to win the section title. Now, that meet was back and forth, and it was coming down to the final race that was going to decide who won the section title. You want to guess what that final race was? Yeah, the 880. Now, Township had the #1 runner in the league. We had the second fastest 880 runner, Jeanette. If Jeanette got first, we win. If Jeanette got second, we needed the 3rd place 1 point to win that track meet by 1 point. So we needed someone to step it up. And as I was walking to that starting line, I thought about how Coach Marianne believed in me all these years, put me in the 880, even though I never scored a point. And I thought of my dad in the bleachers, who came to every single one of my meets, even though I never scored a point. And then I thought, this is my last meet. I graduate from high school next week. I'm tired of being that out-of-reach girl. So when they said go, I went. And I ran faster than I ever ran before. And as I'm coming around that final corner and I see the finish line, I see the Township girl finish first. I see the Jeanette finishes second, and she turns around quick to see who's behind her. And she's shocked because it's me. And I'm coming down that final stretch, and everybody's cheering for me. And for once, I feel like that gifted athlete. But my legs, they're telling me otherwise because I'm starting to sink like I'm in quicksand. Yeah, and I can't show you how low I went or I'm going to be out of reach of the microphone and the camera. But I'm inches from the finish line. And my legs completely start to collapse. And I'm thinking, no, not this time. And somehow I manage to push myself forward, and I land face forward, spread eagle on the track. Cinder track, that is. My whole team came running around me. But the best part was my dad. He came running down. He had this big smile on his face, ear to ear. with his camera taking pictures of me, spread eagle on the track. But he saw me get that 1 point, the only point I ever got, and it won the section title. 40 years after that meet, my whole family was around my dad's bed. Dad was dying. We were all saying our final goodbyes. When it was my turn, I really wanted Dad to know it was me. So I took Dad's hand, and I leaned down really close, and I said, Dad, it's Marianne, your daughter who wasn't very good at track. I looked down at Dad. His eyes were shut. He was barely breathing. But slowly, his head was going up and down. Dad still knew it was me. And I wanted to give Dad one more thing. The one thing that was never out of reach for me with Dad. So I leaned down one more time, and I said, Dad, that you would remember. And I saw the last smile my dad ever made. Thank you.